In this episode, Petre shared with us his path from his very first student job in an Abercrombie and Fitch store, followed by a few technology startups, all the way to becoming a whiz kid in product management for a top technology company. Learn why he made a jump from Copenhagen to Bucharest, the differences in educational space in between those two, and what advice he has to give for people willing to break into product management. Enjoy. All right, Petre, thanks so much for joining the podcast. So it would be awesome if you could give the listeners a short summary of your bio.
So, first of all, hi, Stefan. I'm really glad to be here. I think this is quite amazing that you started this just a while ago, and you keep pushing at it. And I think this is something could be something interesting for the future.
Let's hope so.
um, yeah, let's see how that will roll out in the future. Just like a short introduction. So currently, I am a product manager at Vera. I deal within the field of IoT security. And as a background, I'm more oriented towards the business area. And as a background of my studies, I studied business administration, then moved for master's in innovation and entrepreneurship in Copenhagen, Denmark, pretty much.
Cool, awesome stuff. So right now you're based in Bucharest, right?
Yes, I moved about 3.5, maybe 4 years back from Copenhagen. I just moved to Bucharest. I did a bachelor's in business administration because I think from a young age I was a little bit inclined with the business side. I remember when I was pretty young, I had my first sales. I think it was like my first job. I think it was like at the age of 15 or 16. I had to have kind of like permission for my parents to actually activate as a sales rep. Was just involved in this kind of technology space where you had to sell a particular product to particular clients, and I was always was inclined in this area, and I thought that was a good kind of place to be at that particular point. And of course, formal studies do have an impact on the way that you perceive reality. And I was quite a fan of economics. So I don't know if I was a fan, but I was really good at it. And then it kind of seemed like a pleasure. And the normal step was, after I finished my high school, was to go and practically study business administration, right? With with a touch of economics, of course.
Okay, cool stuff. Is it something useful and insightful to mention here?
Well, I gotta say, I'm really satisfied with the particular program that I did, because mostly it was in English and it dealt with business administration. And it was quite interesting because a lot of the course materials you could find at bigger university, let's say it like that, prestigious university. But I wasn't quite satisfied with the way of teaching. So as Romanian people, we have this kind of legacy of I would say introducing a lot of theoretical knowledge into young people, right? Because that's our kind of perception of how a particular person should be learning a new skill or something. But this, looking back, I would say that did have quite a good impact on me, because dealing with this high influx of theoretical knowledge, I was able to, at a particular point in life, to easily assimilate high amounts of information, which is quite good, especially in the line of where I'm activating right now as a product manager, right? Because you have to really assimilate a lot of information, right? And school, one of the base and most important things that the Romanian school did was to teach you how to assimilate a high amount of information, and that I think is very beneficial, right? What I wasn't quite happy about it, that you didn't kind of use that theoretical, you had the theoretical knowledge, but you didn't really apply that in a practical manner, right? Like particular use cases or exercises that go through the theoretical knowledge and actually creating something or doing something a little bit more practical, a little bit exploring like particular use cases that have happened in the world and learning from them in a practical manner, right? And this was something that I was a little bit annoyed with, but all in all, it was a good experience. But I decided to, when I finished my bachelor's, I decided to move away because I was interested in business administration, but I also found really, really fascinating the field of entrepreneurship and the field of innovation. So pretty much how did innovation happen? How do you manage innovation? How do you create something out of nothing, right? Because it felt so out of this world as I go back and I think about it. It felt out of this world. Like I could not understand how can you create something out of nothing, right? Because I only had theoretical knowledge, right? And then I applied to a particular master's at the Copenhagen Business School, master's in innovation, organizational innovation and entrepreneurship. And I got accepted, and I didn't think twice. I just went to Denmark with nothing, no particular plan in mind or anything. I just had an address and the name of the school, and that was it. I just hopped on a plane and I was there. And then my journey became quite interesting. And as I studied, as I managed to get into the program a little bit more, I found out that the way of teaching is quite different from what I was used to, because you also had a lot of theoretical knowledge. You also have a vast, actually a bigger amount of theoretical knowledge that you have to assimilate. But in class, you wouldn't necessarily talk about that theoretical knowledge, but you would apply it to particular use cases, right? So you would particularly apply, you would discuss, like you would have, I don't know, Harvard Business Review articles or different themes that you would discuss, but you had to do the background and you had to have the theoretical knowledge to be able to answer within the class. And there was always, I remember we had a very, very cool professor that taught us one interesting thing, that there are no right or wrong answers. And I couldn't conceive that at the beginning. At that time, I was like, oh, this is so weird. But eventually in business, at the beginning, when you start off, of course, there are no right or wrong answers. You got to try, and then you got to see what might work, what might not work, right? And just the way of doing particular cases, or in being involved in particular projects that are indeed for companies that activate in the real world, and then you had a particular problem that they came to you with as a student. I found it very, very interesting, because they came to you and they asked you, hey, how would you solve this problem? We have an issue over here. We would like to innovate in the field of, I don't know, transportation or energy efficiency, or just normal stuff. We would like to build a new wallet. Just not necessarily technical, but from all type of products. And you would pick up a project, sorry, and you would just dive into it based on the theoretical knowledge that you have. And you would just, have your team and come up with ideas about how to implement this, what to look at, do the market search, with the market research before, and trying to understand exactly what the particular problem is and what are you trying to solve with that product. And it was quite interesting. I remember so many interesting projects from back then. Yeah.
I had Albert on my podcast in one of my previous episodes. He's a great guy, and he's studying in Denmark too, right? And he was mentioning this mindset where students were encouraged to go and take internships. And so eventually he ended up living in China, Spain, and so on. How were things on your side? Did you engage in any activities outside your school? What was your approach?
Yes, yes, of course, of course. Well, of course, because that's one of the particular things that also they kind of push you to actually do. So the academic environment actually pushes you to go out there and explore, which I really find interesting because everybody. So the environment that you're in, the group of students that you're with, and hanging all day long, and then discussing projects and all that. They're also involved in different side hassles, let's say, like that, right? And different side projects, and just the community over there pushes you to actually pick up other activities behind behind the studies, right? And for me, I was really involved in the startup scene. I found startups to be quite amazing, and this has to do with particular, my question of how do you innovate, and it just fascinated me, right? And I remember my first particular job that I got over there was as an intern, as a marketing intern at a startup that run within a accelerator. And that was quite interesting. That was quite challenging. I was new to the whole thing. But what amazed me was that particular. So an accelerator is pretty much a bunch of startups that you have in one particular place. You have mentors. You have people that teach you how to explore an idea and to create a product that you ultimately sell to the particular target group, and actually creating value and monetizing on that value, right? And the batch that I was in was comprised with 12 different companies, right? 12 different startups. And I was in a company that dealt with trying to solve a problem of mismatched, let's say, like this mismatched uh, clothes. Like, how do you approach when you're going online to shop for a t-shirt or a pair of sneakers? How do you make sure that you are picking your right size based on your body, based on your based on your body? And I think that was a quite interesting challenge that they had, and I just found it really really entertaining because there was a lot of knowledge sharing, right? So you would always have this weekly, let's say, hangouts where everybody from each startup went on stage and then presented their progress and presented new ways of approaching solutions to particular problems that they had. And then you would have a vast majority of mentors that would come in and tell you how to build up build up your product and eventually your business. And I found this quite interesting. And at the same time, of course, this was an internship, and I had to take another job, a paid job, let's say like that. And I eventually started off quite quite heavy as started off with Abercrombie and Fitch. So I was pretty much folding clothes from seven in the evening all the way to 2 a.m. Right, just to have this monetary income. And it was quite challenging because I was doing this, I was doing masters, I was doing an internship, and I was working at night also, trying to have a steady income, and also having a very very active social life, right? But when you're young, you're just like, yeah, that doesn't matter. I have all this energy, I can do all this stuff, right? I can deal well with 6 hours, 5 6 hours of sleeping tonight, or just you have more energy, right? And slowly as I migrated from that, I I was doing a lot of. So Denmark is a little bit different when compared to Romania, because they rely a lot on networking, which I find very very useful, right? So as a kid, because I was basically a kid when I moved over there, I didn't understand the concept of networking. I knew it. I knew theoretically what it entitled, but I didn't really know how to network, right? And it was weird because I was talking in English, and everybody else at this networking events were talking either Danish or English, and just the fact of going out there to a particular group of people and just engaging in conversation was like so out of my comfort zone at the beginning. But eventually, by working on that craft, I eventually managed to get into it and to get more satisfied with the outcome. So I was attending all these networking events related to startups and related to business in general. And I found it quite engaging, right? And as I dealt with this on the physical world, also networking happens in the online world also, right? And I was just talking with business angels or investors about startups. I was just making connections, building up my network, engaging with them. And eventually I stumbled upon business angel that had around, I don't know, at that time, 15 or 20 startups. And I engaged in talking with him, and eventually, don't remember exactly how it happened, but he said, "Hey, why don't you come work for me? As a product manager." And I was like, "What is that? What exactly is a product manager, right?" And then I started working with this guy. He had, as I said, he invested in around 15 or 20 startups, and I was just like there to help him build those particular startups with the co-founders and with the stakeholders, let's say the stakeholders involved over there. And I found that the most intense experience by that time ever, right? Because it was quite challenging. I was new to this. I didn't know a lot, but just by exploring and with the theoretical knowledge that I have had from the masters and from him as a mentor, I just started working on particular topics, like from all the way from identifying a particular problem that startup is trying to solve, and all the way to actually creating a minimum viable product that can solve that problem. Who are we targeting? That particular niche group. Is this minimum viable product enough? Can we go live? Can we test it more? Can we go, and does this actually solve the problem? And I was involved in all this funnel for, I guess, 10 different startups, and more heavily involved in, I guess, was 2 or 3 startups. And at one point, one of the startups, we were 3 people, 3 or 5 people. I don't remember exactly when we started off, but in the course of a 1.5 year, it grew from 3 to 5 people to 150 people, just like yeah.
Scaling
It
up.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was so intense. It was so intense. But yes, so to answer your question, I was involved in a lot of activities besides and I do encourage everybody that is studying a master's to just explore out there. Just go out there and explore, because you have that energy, you don't have a lot of responsibilities. You're just learning. You're in the process of learning, right? And also in being involved in also this many startups, it also gave me the willingness, and also going through a lot of this networking events. I met a lot of people, but through this whole process, I met some really interesting. Now they're close friends of mine, and we started a company. We said, like, hey, I like the idea. I like how it works. Let's do it. Let's make it a business. Let's make it an actual business, and let's try and define the product, and then come up with the value proposition, come up with the minimum viable product that we can push it out there, and then we can grow it, right? I was very, very excited about this. And if you would sum up, like kind of my years, like 2020, what was it, 23, 24 at that time, 22 and 24, I was living on Coca-Cola pizza, and yeah, and just working crazy hours for all of the activities that I was involved in, right? And I remember back then when I started the startup, it was focused on beacon technology, right? So you would just really short. You would have all these beacons placed in a particular store, and you would connect with a phone via Bluetooth, and then you would get either messages or information about particular, let's say, items within a store, or particular offers that might be personalized to your persona, let's say it like that, right? And it was quite interesting. It was really interesting because we kind of like had this minimum viable product. And I remember we got the beacons from China. I was involved with two actually developers. We had the startup working, the website up and running, the backend system up and running, the mobile application up and running, and then we just had all this ecosystem. And then we just, hey, we got to go, and then we got to get 5 clients. One of the interesting things that my mentor, but actually the CEO, the business angel that I worked with, he had a really interesting way of approaching MVPs. He said, hey, just get 5 clients. All it takes is get 5 clients. Do the best. If you get 5 clients, then get 10 clients, and then get more. But validate your product with 5 clients, and we did this, and it was quite awesome because they were very engaged. It also helped that we were students and just at the beginning, and I feel that a lot of people just felt our passion, our drive to actually build this. And yeah, we started off with nothing, and then we got around 50 stores to use our technologies. We went to all this VC meetings, not VC, not that level, but kind of like business angel meetings where you would pitch your business, and then you would get feedback based on how it's shaped, and if you would get funding or if you wouldn't get funding. And that was quite a learning curve for me, because I've never been to that realm, and I got to tell you, it's very exciting. So for young people, I think it's one of the most exciting fields to be in. Startups, I think they're, and you have your experience with startups, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, to jump in, Petre.
Yeah.
So basically, being a student abroad, you've been building every moment. So clearly, you had your back-to-back years. You were deeply involved in the startup space in Copenhagen, jumping from one startup to another. Yet you have background in business. I mean, you studied business administration. You are studying entrepreneurship and innovation in Copenhagen for your master's. Why did you choose to be the business person into technology field?
I don't think I've ever been involved in it. So I don't think I've been involved in a startup that didn't deal with technology, right? So I don't know. It's a good question that you asked right now. If I'm reflecting back, for me, technology was de facto. That was the de facto. I didn't deal with physical products or anything. Everything had a technological component to it, right? And I think it was quite. I was quite passionate because when you're comparing to like a startup that deals with a particular, let's say, physical product, it could be a little bit harder to scale, right? But when you're within the technological field, you can scale up like that instantly, and instantly it becomes chaos, and instantly you have to manage that chaos, and you have to make sure that you can adapt really fast to the ever-changing market, and then you learn from the mistakes, because oh boy, I did a lot of mistakes.
Of course, we all did.
Yeah, I was like, but I don't know who said this. I don't remember exactly, but there is no such things as mistakes, but there are in fact lesson learned. And I think that's quite interesting. But so I had quite a passion about this technology area, let's say it. But I never thought about it. Never really thought about hey, I'm operating in the technology field. It just came as it is. That's what I know.
And trying to figure it out. I mean, why, as millennials, we are somehow attracted by technology, and we are just
Yeah,
on top of it, which is
yeah, it's exciting, man. It's the
yeah.
future. This is the future, and it's exciting because it opens up a realm of new possibility. You get instant feedback. You get really fast feedback. It's unbelievable how fast you can fail or you can succeed, and it's just the advancements just help you become as an individual also better, but as a society better. If you look at it from a sociological aspect, immersing and digitalizing a country, you become more resourceful, you have access to more information, you make things more manageable, more transparent. And I think this is what we tend to, and it really in fact does help our daily lives, right? It just helps us become better, right? And it solves a lot of problems that we have. Everything, most of the problems right now are, I don't know, I don't want to be selfish, but 80% of the problems that right now we have, I bet there is a startup over there that is trying to do something with technology that solves that particular problem.
Yeah, just to mention here, I mean, I have an engineering background,
Mm-hmm.
whereas you have a business background. Yet,
Yeah.
we both of us, we are passionate about technology. I'm trying to link this somehow with what the media is pushing, with this
Mm-hmm.
hype, everyone joining technology nowadays. Of course, in Bucharest, we have big salaries. I mean, this is the image of working in technology: big salaries,
Yeah.
smart people, all the talent is there. So just switch from whatever position you had in whatever industry you've been working in, go in technology. Man. I mean,
I don't know. So like, I don't know. There is a hype, of course. There is a hype, and I don't know. From my understanding right now, I don't mind it. I like it. To be honest, I don't necessarily see a problem that because this is access to information is everything, right? And the more people have more access to the information, the better they can make decisions and informed decisions. And I think the better picture that the outlets, the media is painting about the future, how will the future look, better, people have a sense of where they want to work and what do they want to do and what automatically they're passionate about, right? Because I think from my perspective, I think it's important if you're working, if you're spending, 9 8 9 hours a day at work, you've got to be passionate about what you're doing, because if you're not, there's still time to kind of like switch, right? So I do encourage people to follow, kind of their passion and make sure that they can also make a living out of it. They can sustain themselves, I guess.
excellent, excellent. To circle back to the startup you founded in Copenhagen, how did it end up? I mean, is it still running? Did you get your clients? Did you get the funding? What happened with the company?
Well,
I assume you failed, because this is what happens with most of these startups nowadays. And what would be your key takeaways after this?
yes, 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 of course. Well, it's not necessarily. I don't think. Yet again, I don't have a problem with failure, and it's very very hard for me to conceive the fact that I particularly failed with the startup. In that time, there were a lot of things happening. I was doing my master's. I was involved in multiple startups. I was involved in this one, and one of the startups that I was more heavily involved working with business angel. What happened was that, as I told you, in the exactly same time, it grew from 5 people to, in the next year and a half, to 150 people, right? So I got more involved into that. I got more kind of like involved in trying to define the problem, trying to define the product, and then expanding that particular product beyond Denmark, right? And it was just too much to manage. But yet again, there is a key takeaway from my experience with the Beacon startup, let's say it like that. I didn't know a lot. So it's crazy now. Now I see it because I'm better informed, I guess. I have a little bit more experience than back then. But one of the biggest problems that I did over there was I didn't necessarily went in to solve a problem. So I guess it goes back to your love of technology. Let's say it like that. So I was more in love with the technology, with a solution that focused on the problem, right? So I was involved because I was loving the idea that you can do so many things with beacons, right? It's a new technology. It's cool. A lot of things happened back then. You had drones. You had so many things, right? In the technological area, right? And I just fell in love with this technology, and I was trying to place it to a particular problem. So I was going the other way around. So I have this cool technology that we can play with. We can do some things. Now let's find out some problems that we can solve with it, right? And I think that was a big mistake, because not usually, you always go from the problem. You identify the problem. You identify what is causing that problem, and then you build the product. And then you can use whatever technology is out there to solve that problem, taking into account some other aspects, let's say it like that, right? But it was a fun journey. It was very, very fun journey. And yeah, I would say then I didn't fail, but I left it over there. I just said, I'm just gonna switch my efforts more into this direction, because it also provided me with some I would say financial incentive, right? Because working, as a startup, I didn't have necessarily the finances to actually fund that particular company. As a kid, when you're starting off, you don't have that. And I know there are a lot of ways that you can access it, and then there are a lot of ways that you can do it, but there were a lot of reasons that at that particular time I considered the better decision to actually move with the other startup called Order Yo-Yo, by the way, and just put all my efforts into that direction, as going into it full on, let's say 110%. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And what was the next direction you've been mentioning? What was next?
Okay, so pretty much, so as I was a product manager for that particular startup, and I was involved in all areas of the product. I was involved in processes because at the beginning, in a startup, there was a lot of chaos, and then you have to, because you're working with more and more people, you have to install processes, you have to install methodologies, ways of working. How do you generate new ideas? How do you make sure that you deliver on those ideas? How do you work with a technical team to actually implement those things? How do you validate if this is the right direction that you actually are going? And then I became in love with more and more in love with this whole concept of product management, right? And ultimately, if you look back, most of the activities that a product manager actually does was the things that I also did in the past, right? Trying to validate the market, trying to validate, what is the strategy that we're taking, what is the mission, what is the vision, what is the particular roadmap that we're gonna have, how are we gonna base our strategy, and eventually how are we gonna deliver value to the particular user groups that we're targeting, right? And I played, I would say, quite a few times in this startup with this concept, and it was just a very intense journey that I had over there. But yet again, at the end, I finished my master's. I finished everything. I spent more time in Denmark, and I thought I entered into a particular place that I still felt a little bit too comfortable, let's say it, right? I felt a little bit too, it's like, okay, everything is going nice, everything is going okay, but I still want to learn. I want to learn new things. I want to explore more. I want to get more out there, right? And I just didn't feel that Denmark, that necessarily Copenhagen at that age was right for me, right? And then I moved back to Bucharest, and then played a little bit with also because I was young and I was thinking maybe, product management is not one particular area that, I see myself in the future or not. I did back then, but I still wanted to explore different things just to make sure that, I'm not making a mistake. I'm not actually going on a path. I want to validate my assumptions before I engage more and more into this direction, right? And then, I played with eventually I started off doing some projects back in Bucharest. I ended up at Vodafone, in the strategic department, and then where I met you, and that was an interesting journey. And then eventually I moved to Avira, right? And when I moved to Avira, I was hired as a business developer, right? Because I was more into trying to still feed my hunger of exploring, right? Interacting with different clients, interacting with C-level executives, trying to understand their way of thinking, trying to understand what with different product managers, trying to understand, how they perceive. And I did this for a short time. But yet again, it was a very, very interesting journey because I was traveling back and forth in the US. I was traveling to China, trying to figure out, like how can we sell this product, how can we build it, and then and I have to thank my manager at that time. He said, hey, Petre, come on, you got to move into product management because this is for you. You're built this way. You love it. You like it. You like solving problems. You like you like dealing with the technical team. You like dealing with the market. You like dealing with the customer experience. This is you. This is what you do. You love it. And he was right. And then more and more, and then I became, kind of like immersive in the product management side of our product that we're building right now. So
Awesome.
it was an interesting journey, I gotta say.
Would you tell us what a product manager does?
Okay, yeah, sure. So it's such a debatable question, I guess, because in the product community, a lot of people have their definitions. There's no really standard definition for a product manager, right? A lot of people call them kind of like the mini CEOs of the product, or stuff like that. Which is, it's okay because it's a learning process and everybody is trying to, it's still a new job and a new responsibility out there, and it takes time to actually develop and refine it. Yet again, the definition is different from company to company, and I think this is one issue that doesn't help because every company has their understanding of what a product manager is, and it's just creating a little bit more chaos in trying to define it. But automatically, I can say from my experience, a product manager is practically the person that is responsible for the product delivery, the product improvement, and making sure that the product they are actually building is solving a real problem for the market that it's targeting, right? So as a product, just like a really high level overview, you are involved also in the technological space and technical space. You're involved in the business side, and then you're involved also in the user experience side, right? So you're dealing a lot with the developers. You're dealing a lot with sales, marketing, finance, customer support, you name it. And then you're also dealing with the experience and the feedback that you get from the users, your customers, your source of reality, let's say it like that. Does this paint a better picture?
Cool.
Let's say.
Let's hope so. I mean, for me, I have my own definition when it comes to product management, of course. But I hope listeners will have a clear understanding of what a product manager
It's
does.
That's the thing. That's the thing, because it really depends also on the product life cycle, right? If you're at the beginning of the product, when you're just creating the product, you're involved more in the strategic side. You're involved more into kind of like creating that particular vision, creating that vision. Let's say that global vision of where do you see the future? What is happening in the future in the next 5 to 10 years? What is your product looking in that particular future? What is the vision that you're trying to create, and what is the mission, right? And based on those things, you kind of develop a strategy for your particular product, right? But you're just nailing down and trying to understand. And of course, those things could change over time. They're not static. They change as the market evolves. The more information you acquire, the better you get at defining those things, right? You're focusing on the product. You're focusing on the strategy of the product, making sure that you take the necessary actions, the necessary decisions, and the necessary time to actually unite everybody into kind of like one particular unit that goes towards that mission that you have defined, right? And you constantly have to work as a product manager. You have to constantly work on that. Then as the product as the product evolves, as the product you are developing the product, you are actually creating, you're moving a little bit away from the strategy side, and you're working with the development team. You're leading the development team and making a product that follows that vision and follows the feedback from the market, right? So from my experience right now, I'm involved heavily with the technical team, working with them to actually building the product and integrating with particular customers that we have. I'm working also on the marketing side, making sure that people know about us, that know about the product, but also spending a lot of time on, let's say, legal matters, customer support. Yet again, every aspect as a product manager, you're involved in every aspect of the business. Let's say it like that. You are responsible for the success or failure of the product. Does this make sense?
Obviously, you cannot really put a finger on it, what a product manager does. And from my understanding, throughout my career, I've been dealing with a bunch of product managers.
Yes.
And I wouldn't say it's easy to put a finger on it. I mean, I hope it's gonna be easy for listeners to understand. Just and working with product managers, I think what the product manager does. I mean, the main aspect of his work should be building stuff, building products, and of course throughout the way he's dealing with technical teams, software engineers, with business people, with marketing, with finance teams, with strategy.
You are right. And automatically, it is like that. It is like that because you have to validate the product with the market, and you have to make sure that you found that particular market fit. And it's a whole iterative process, right? And we're basing our work a lot of on the agile framework. Just pushing a feature out there, making sure that we collect feedback. Does this work? Does this not work? Does it work? Does it not work? We go back to the drawing board in case of maybe we got it wrong. Maybe there is a different way of implementing this. Maybe there is a different need we have to solve. Maybe there is a different experience that we have to give, right? And it's all about, I think it's very important to understand that the product manager is responsible for the value that the user, the customer, whatever you want to call him, she, is experiencing, right? And of course, as you do this, you deal a lot with what we discussed about features, right? Because they are ways, let's say it like that, they are solutions to existing problems, right? That the user, that the customers, let's call let's call them stakeholders, right? That the stakeholders are having, right? And also you have a very, very important role in trying to lead the development team and actually make sure that the deliverables that you receive at the end of each sprint, at the end of each iteration, do actually solve that particular problem. And then you have to oversee the process, and you have to guide everybody in towards moving into that direction, right? So you're dealing a lot with the development team to make sure that what you're building actually is valuable, right?
Cool stuff. I'm sure it's not easy being a product manager. What would be top three challenges that you've been having as a product manager?
Okay, so this, I think I love it. I do love it. I do love being a product manager because it's so vast and it's so never a day isn't gonna be so the next day is not gonna be as the last day. It's always changing. It's always something new that we're learning. It's so always a new problem that appears, and then you have to deal with it. So it's very, very dynamic. And of course, I do love working with uncertainty, and I think a lot of the work of the product manager deals with a lot of unknown variables, a lot of uncertainty, and trying to make decisions based on data and based on the information that she has from the market. I would say there are also, like every job, there are also some things that I don't necessarily find them very, very delightful. Let's say like that. But what is critical, what I do on a daily basis, I work close with the development team to actually build the product and make sure that that we have a particular sprint that has a particular end goal that we wanna deliver. I work a lot with the client, making sure that the integration that we do between our technical team, their technical team, does it make sense? Is it okay if we do it another way? So there's a lot of management, die side client management. I work a lot with the legal department to make sure that we're okay. I work a lot also in refining the vision and on the strategy aspects of the product, which I really find enjoyable. But the things that I don't really enjoy is that you're never going to be, as a product manager, you're never going to be really an expert in one of those fields, right? You're never going to be an expert in marketing. You're never going to be an expert in sales. You're never going to be an expert in development, right? And software development. And this is because I'm also kind of like an overachiever, and I think this is the curse of our generation. It's a little bit tough to manage, because you have to have a wide and spread view of all the subjects, and then you have to have really analytical mind to actually make sense, and logical and structured mind to actually make sense of all the moving pieces. And believe me, there are many. And this is something that I'm still dealing with, but this is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of product management, because as you evolve in this particular field, you get more and more knowledge on those aspects, but also crafting your expertise in actual product management. The second thing that I don't enjoy is it's very hard to separate your working life from your personal life. And there is, and of course, with the pandemic happening right now and working from home, everybody's working from home. I guess a lot of people have this struggle in trying to define, hey, what is work, what is personal, also work-life balance, let's say it. But as a product manager, you're constantly on the call. You're constantly thinking about, the next thing that you want to build, the next feature that you want to ship out, either, a strategy you want to implement, a decision that you want to make. You're dealing with sales, with marketing. You're dealing with clients that, just you see, you have, and because you have access to the information, and you just want to respond. And I think, and I also, from my side, I know that this is something that I have to work on, is this kind of constant work-life balance.
Speaking of work-life balance,
Yes.
do you have any hobbies? And if so, are they somehow related to what a product manager does?
Okay, sure. So, well, I am a very active person, right? I like to do sports, a lot of sports. So I do swimming, I do snowboarding, I do kite surfing. Well, actually, I tried kite surfing and I found it interesting, but I never got the time to go back and do it yet again. I do bouldering and just fitness in general, like weightlifting and everything. And because of the pandemic, right now I cannot do most of these activities, so I just recently started picking up running, which I find quite quite amazing.
Awesome.
I find it
Please
really
tell me
good.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you, man. You run a lot. How many marathons did you do by now?
A few. I think just 3 marathons. Yeah.
Oh man,
I was
that's a lot.
I
That is
was
a lot.
about to run in Paris at the Paris
Yeah.
Marathon in April, but because of pandemic, no chance of doing that.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I picked up those things. And I think it's very, very important because it's a great way doing physical activities. It's a it's a great way to connect, right? Because you're focusing on different things, you're just leaving your mind, and all the challenges that you have and all the things that are pressing on your mind, you leave them aside. So I think it's very, very important in every professional, for every professional, in the life of every professional, to do sports, because it gives you that time to deconnect. And for me, that time is very, very important, because then when I come back from a run or I do a particular activity, I feel refreshed. I feel better, right? And I just find it very, very useful. Other things, I'm a big fan of music. I really like listening to rock and roll. I like, just playing all the old songs and just chilling with either a glass of wine or friends, having friends over, just discussing crazy topics or crazy things. So I'm an extrovert, and I just like being around people and enjoying it and creating this kind of atmosphere where everybody is, socializing and everybody's feeling good. We're debating interesting things, and we're ultimately kind of like growing in the personal life. Let's say it like that, right? Yeah, but kind of those are my hobbies, let's say it like that. And also, I'm also very keen on, I don't know if this is a hobby or more effect. But I always believe, like, you have to do something every day that you better yourself, right? Every day, either you make a run, you got up, you did a run, you're a better runner. You read something that helped you in your particular life or in your professional life, but you're better. You're always working on your craft, always working to become a better professional or a better individual, right? And I find this, I don't know if this is a hobby, but this is kind of like a mantra, that the things that I do in my free time automatically add up to this philosophy, let's say it like that, right? And I really enjoyed it, and so far it has worked for me. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Cool stuff, Petre. Now, obviously, you're an outgoing guy. It's easy to talk with you, and you've been mentioning a lot, especially during your masters. You had quite a networking activity, reaching out to business angels, to other founders, and
Yes.
so on. How important it was for you to have such mentors, not just mentors, but to have a nice network of individuals to rely on.
Yes. It's a good question. It's a very, very good question. Well, I do believe that mentors play a big role in the young professionals' life. Let's say it like that, because they can teach you stuff. They can kind of like guide you, because let's face it, when you're starting off, you don't know nothing. That's the reality.
You know nothing, John.
You know nothing, exactly. That's the reality, right? And as you advance towards your career, you start to learn more things. You start to interact and have a base of knowledge, let's say like that. But I think the most important role that a mentor can actually play. Well, let's say it like this. Mentors are there to support you. They are there to guide you. They are there to tell you, hey, maybe you should improve your skill into this direction, or maybe you should improve it in that direction, because they have the experience and they have this working knowledge. They know more. They have more information. They have more lives of years of experience, let's say, years of living, right? And they can shape you, and they can give you a little bit of guidance in this crazy abundant informational abundant world, right? Because it's tough. It is there's a lot of information. You don't know how to disseminate that information. There's a lot of information that you don't know if it's right, if it's wrong, especially at a young age, like at 22, 23, that starting off your professional life, let's say it like that. And they play this huge good role of shaping you, let's say. But what I think the most important thing is that there is somebody over there that you're facing a difficult this situation, like you're about to quit because it's either too difficult, or either it's too complex or too complicated. And you can go over there and then you can say, hey, I have this particular challenge that I'm trying to solve. Can you help me out? And it's not about the response that they will give you. I don't think it's about the response that they will give you, hey, you have to do this and this and this, but just knowing that, especially when you're young, hey, there is somebody over there that has my back. And I think that is the best feeling that you can hope for, because that, hey, I can rely on somebody that has more knowledge, more information than me, and she has my particular back. And then that drives you to actually outperform yourself and better yourself, just by knowing that I'm here to help. There is somebody over there, that mentor that is over there to actually help you in your struggles, in your challenges. Let's say it like that.
Of course, it's better to have such people in your network with enough experience to give you valuable advice. But for me, also, my friends having the same age as me, I also consider them as mentors. Because of course, I mean, you can take bits of information from any friend you have, and it's super important to build and actually be active. I mean, whenever you go to work, you go to some sports in your free time, just be attention to the people you think you somehow click with. Yeah, because
Yes.
you never know if it's gonna be a really nice relationship that you might benefit from.
Yes. No, I totally agree. It's your network. Well, it actually says about your network says something about you. As long as you're surrounding yourself with people, good people that have kind of like the same way of thinking, the same mentality as you. The same way of approaching life. I think this is quite truthful. You're right. And it's important to build your network, and it's important also in the work life. I think it's important to put people on the first place, because eventually, and also for product managers, their biggest their biggest attitude is the people that they work with. A product manager will be nothing without the people that he or she works with, right? And I think it's good to have mentors also in different let's say areas, but at the same also at the same age, right? And as you said, and as I said before, it's more about having that particular person over there that has your back, kind of in a way that says, hey, I have your back. If you have questions for me, this is what I can make sure that or you can do. but also having that one individual that can say, hey, I have your back. I can help you in this direction. You can bounce off some ideas of me, and then this is just a social, let's say, like kind of like a social constructivism approach, right? Where things emerge, because basically, if you boil down, startups, they also and things, how do things emerge into reality, is basically, let's say it's stories of other people's and stories of stories, right? You heard a particular story that one individual did a particular thing, and you think it's real, right? And so can you also do it, right? And that gives you the power to actually, build either a startup or build a particular product or build something because you've heard it from different places, and this is how reality kind of emerges. Let's say it like that.
Cool. All in all, I mean, what piece of advice would you have for students, graduates, or young professionals that want to switch and jump into the product management world?
Well, in terms of advice, as I said, it's important to also, well, I would say it's a good question. It's a good question. I have to think about it as long as I'm giving advice, No, but I think it boils down to being curious, right? It boils down to being curious about a particular thing. And the more curious if you are about a particular field, let's say product management, you get more and more involved into it. And it's also important to be, let's say, courageous in the activities that you're going to take. And I'm just referring to this because there is no, let's say, clear pathway into product management. There's no such thing, clear pathway. You can stumble upon product management coming from all sorts of direction. But if you look at it from a higher level perspective, it's important to have this elements to be really curious about things, about products in general, how they work, how can I improve it, how can I make it better, to be courageous, to take up new challenges and expand your let's say like your comfort zone, and going into places that you don't necessarily are comfortable with, and push yourself to the limit. And also another key element would be to be humble,
Excellent.
because I think it's very important to be humble, and to kind of be that particular person that works well with everybody and is in touch with kind of like the sense of the team, because as I said, as a product manager, you rely on the people that you have in your team to actually succeed, right? And I think these are not necessarily tips and tricks how to go into the product management field, but ways of qualities that a product manager should have. And the more you have those values into stone, the more you will find out responses to your questions. Does that make sense?
Of course, of course. Valuable stuff. Yeah, let me know. What would you want to say if you have another piece of advice for everyone, not just going into product management, anything you want to.
I'm just going to talk about a little bit about the present and not the past or the future, because I think it's very important that we live in the present and we focus. I think it's a key thing to actually, and it's becoming more and more difficult to actually live in the present, because we're always think about past things, past decisions, past um, um, let's say activities that we done, and we're always looking forward. We're looking forward into the future, and visualizing and trying to shape how it looks. But I also think it's important to live in the moment and adapt to what is happening right now. So that thing. And I think with the whole pandemic, one of the things that um, I've experienced. You can see I'm a very outgoing person. I like is one of the most the the things that I like a lot is to be around people and interact with people and kind of feel their presence and be out, be there to kind of engage with them. And during the pandemic was very, very difficult. I thought, for me, it's going to be very, very difficult, and I'm just going to break because I'm going to be, alone in my apartment every day, and just doing this type of, conferences, right? But yet again, I think it's important to know that every situation that you are going to be in, no matter how worse or bad or good it is, you're going to adapt, and then it's upon your responsibility to actually figure out, because the information is out there, to figure out what works for you, how can you adapt, and how can you push yourself to the point where your reality becomes, you're okay with your reality, you're okay with your current situation. And it's challenging, I know it's challenging, but it's just a healthy way of approaching it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for accepting my invitation to join
Yeah,
in
sure.
my podcast. Let's hear you again next time when you'll be I don't know, or maybe a manager. Who knows?
Thank you.